Hello, people. Welcome back. We've been contemplating what's going on behind the veil. You see, God is at work. Sometimes He puts a veil in front of what He's been doing, and then right at a specific time and a specific purpose, He opens the veil, shows us what He's doing. We spoke about the pain of Gethsemane, opening the veil to the purpose of the cross. Now we're talking about the purpose of the cross being opened literally in our story today, the reading, into the very presence of God. Let me read to you this. Jesus is hanging upon the cross. He cries out to God, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Then verse 35 of chapter 15. When some of those standing near heard this, they said, "Listen, he's calling Elijah." One man ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a stick, offered it to Jesus to drink. "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him home," he said. With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. There's the purpose of the cross. Beautiful picture. That behind the veil, God was tearing that veil now to open up access into His very presence. Now you can understand what the temple looked like. In the middle of the temple was a place called the Holy of Holies that had the Ark of the Covenant. And it had walls on the side, and then it had this huge tent. I mean, this huge veil that was so strong, it was like a thick curtain. And it hung in separating the Holy of Holies from everything else. And the high priest was the only guy who could go in there, and that once a year, just to put blood on the Ark of the Covenant. And it was the Holy of Holies, where the very presence of God was said to be and was. Now, here's the deal. When Jesus died upon the cross, fulfilling through the pain of Gethsemane, the purpose of the cross, and then this veil was torn in two. The Jewish people were petrified when they came into the temple, and they could see into the place where the Ark of the Covenant was. They thought they were going to be struck dead. They couldn't go in there. They couldn't have a look upon it. It was such a holy place. And now God had rent that veil top to bottom and torn it apart and said to people, now you don't just look in, you're invited in to the very presence of God through the veil of the curtain in the temple. What an incredible picture. Can you pick up the pictures here? The veil of pain, the veil of the cross, for the purpose of being in the presence of God. Now that, people, is totally worth celebrating. And when you're in the presence of God like that, there's nothing superficial about that kind of place. You're standing, as it were, on holy ground. And the place where you now stand is the place where everybody ever wanted to be. A place of forgiveness, a place of direct access to God Himself. Not having to go through the priest, not having to go through the law, not having to go through all those rituals. Now, all that is gone. And God says to the people, now I can fellowship with you face to face. Isn't that an incredible thing? And now with this new dispensation that we now find ourselves in, we have access into the very presence of God ourselves. In the old days, you would have to go through the priest and do his sacrifices, and you could never walk in there directly at all. Only he could do that on your behalf. And you had to bring your sacrifice, you had to obey the law, so much burdensome stuff, all because you desired the presence of God. And God says, now I've done it all for you. You had no role to play. You had nothing to do with this thing. I did it all. And I think for me, that's the incredibleness of this Easter thing. God is saying, you can't deal with sin. Stand aside and watch as I deal with the greatest enemy of mankind, which is sin. And when that temple curtain was torn in two, inviting access into the very presence of God, that's us, people. We're now invited by God to come and fellowship directly with Him. Now, when you get into that space, let me tell you what you're going to do. You're going to fall on your face and you're going to worship. I just think of Isaiah when he had a similar experience, and he, in his vision, went into the temple, And he had never seen God as he saw him that time. The veil was gone, and God stood there, and he was surrounded by angels. They were all worshiping, holy, holy, holy. And Isaiah just fell straight on his face. What else could he do? And he lifted his eyes, and God said to him, you know, you're an unclean sinner. And he declared that himself, I'm unclean. And what am I going to do? And God says, I'll do it for you. He took that stone from the altar, and an angel came, put it on his lips, and cleansed him. Another picture of what happens when we come into the very presence of God. You say, what did Isaiah do then? Well, I suggest he joined the angels in worship of God. When we really get into the very presence of God like that, you're not going to be told to worship. Be told, you're going to worship. And you're going to just be in awe of the wonder of who God is and what he has done on your behalf. All you have to do is receive the gift that God has to give to you. He's done it all. Isn't that incredible? The purpose of the cross. The veil opens in the temple, and you're invited into the very presence of God. No more religious stuff, no more burdens or baggage. Just come into his presence. I hope you make thoroughly good use of that beautiful picture. Have a great day. Bye.